Hey guys, okay, what I thought we could talk about, there's a few things. First of all, I've had my hair done and I hate it. They haven't cut it or anything, so that's fine, but I don't like the curls. Like, curls on me, I was like, don't bother doing curls because they drop on my hair. And then what happens is, let me know if you're the same, if you have naturally straight hair. They drop, but they don't drop fully. So it just looks like you've been caught in the rain. It doesn't look good and I'm not loving it. But tomorrow, and also like I've got so much volume at the roots, I'm not loving it. But anyway, tomorrow, I'm gonna sort it out myself. The other thing I was gonna say, you know, I did the video about the Fairfax and Favour by Lydia Millen bag. Thank you to all of you who watch that video. I know a lot of you said that you found it helpful. I basically love this bag. I love it. I love how it looks. But for me, the opening is a big problem. As I said in that video, like it doesn't open much more than that. And this thing, a lot of you said to me, can't you just unbuckle this to loosen up this bit down here? That doesn't actually loosen up. That is just decoration. But yeah, a lot of you said to me, why didn't you use a measuring tape before you bought it? And that is a very valid question or comment to leave. Very valid. I didn't use a measuring tape because stupidly I went by the images. I don't think I have ever, I probably have at some point, but I don't remember ever buying a bag and using a measuring tape. I'm that person where I see it in the picture, I gauge how big the bag is based on the person modelling it, and then I buy it or I don't. And that's what I did with this. I didn't realise, like, to give you an idea of how small it is, because I didn't do this in the last video. Chanel Mini Rectangle, for any of you who have got this, you'll know that this is, to me, this is very much an evening bag because it's quite small. It's the same size as the Chanel Mini Rectangle, which, as I say, is a small bag. So what I've done is I have secured the larger size and it arrives tomorrow on next day delivery. So I couldn't get it in the burgundy, which is what I really wanted it in because it had sold out, but I have bought it in the black. If I love it, but I want the burgundy, I'm going to return it, wait for the burgundy to come back in stock and then snap it up. Or if I like it in black, I'll just keep the black. But this little one's definitely going to go back, but I'm going to keep hold of it for now so that when the bigger one arrives, I can compare the two and show you if you are curious about buying this bag. But yeah, cute little bag, very cute little bag. Love that design. Do you know, the other thing I was going to tell you is, this is like totally irrelevant to the topic, by the way. But the other thing I was going to tell you is about 2 evenings ago, it got to like 7:30 in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, and we normally walk Louis about that time and then put him to bed because he's got his own, it's really sad, he's got his own like bedroom area that he had as a puppy, and that's where he sleeps. We've tried leaving him out in the house, but he's restless and can't settle, whereas when we put him in his little den area and we shut the door and he's in there, we can still hear him upstairs, but when he's in there, he's just more comfortable and likes it in there. Anyway, we were like, oh, we'll take him for a walk. And we looked at him and his face had blown up like allergies. Like his eye had closed over, his muzzle was really fat. He was like, kept itching at his face, doing all of this kind of thing to, you know, to try and sort out his face. And it was like an allergic reaction. And he hadn't eaten anything that was out of the ordinary, not that we knew of. Anyway, we had to take him to the emergency vet, which was £400, always the way. And then we got there and they gave him an antihistamine and it went down. Anyway, then today I go to the hairdresser and I'm in the hairdresser and David texts me and he's like, oh my word, Louis has got the most disgusting, hugest tick on his face, on his cheek. And it was the side that had blown up the most. And it was the side, he has been itching his face since a couple of days ago. So although the swelling's gone down since the antihistamine and that's all resolved itself, he's been like at his face, like itching at it. And David said, I was patting him and I felt this really hard lump. And I was like, oh my God, is that like a tumour or something? And he said, I look under the fur and there's this bluish white, disgusting, like tick. And he phones up the vet. After he texts me to tell me, he phones up the vet, goes to the vet. You wouldn't believe it. They get to the vet and the tick's fallen off somewhere. And David said it's either in the house, which is gross, it's in the car, which is gross, or it fell off somewhere whilst he was walking Louis from the front door to the car and then into the vet. Anyway, David comes home, we're looking everywhere. We found it. Oh my God, it is like, I've seen ticks before because I grew up with dogs, but never one this big before. And Louis he's got so much fluff that we didn't see it. And it was by the front door on the wooden flooring, and it was just sat there. And by this point it had gone brown from blue. It was rank. It was very much alive. It was just like chilling out. And David was like, I can't deal with that. I can't touch it. And so I got some toilet roll and I like got rid of it, because like if that gets on the rabbits or if that gets on a human, you can get Lyme disease. They're very dangerous things, related to spiders, and I don't like spiders either. So anyway, so that's what's happened this morning. But what I thought we could talk about, 6 minutes in, and I haven't talked about it yet, but I'm going to talk about it now. I had one of you the other day and I'm so annoyed. I wrote down your name to give you a shout out and I cannot find the piece of paper that I wrote your name on. But if you are watching this and you recognise this as being your question and your video request, then this is for you. And I think you wrote to me on Instagram, actually. I think it was a DM. Was it Instagram? Could have been Patreon. No, I think it was Instagram. And what you wanted to ask is, how did I end up being a marketing consultant? Because it's something you're interested in. So I thought I would tell the story, and you know, this channel has become a lot more sort of like personal. Like if you want personal, go and watch my Patreon. I'll link to it below. That's where I talk about my life in a lot more detail. But I've really been enjoying on this channel, sort of breaking up the luxury a little bit, not so much shopping and just chatting about life. And I am losing followers from it. I am. But, you know, that's fine. I'm not precious about that. It doesn't, I want to say it doesn't really bother me. Like, I'm not really someone who's wildly looking at subscriber numbers. I'm more about your comments as to whether you're like liking the comment or whether you're not. And I know a lot of you who are staying with me are like, I really enjoy this sort of more chatty stuff. So, yes, that's that. Okay, so how did I get into consulting? The story starts all the way back when I graduated from university. So my first job, so I had this job when I was at university in like second year or something. And it was like a terrible job, but it's where I met David. So I'm glad that I worked there. But I was working at this place and it was kind of like a customer service marketing support role. And that's really, I always knew I wanted to do marketing because I studied marketing at university. But that was where I kind of got more interested in it and was like, this is what I want to be doing. And you know, it's really weird, but I remember being in that job and I graduated. So before I was working like a few days in the week or a weekend. And then suddenly when I couldn't get any other job, right? And they were the only place that offered me a job because I'd already been working there. And I remember I took on this job and I remember sitting down at my desk on my first proper day where I had to do 8 in the morning until 6:30 at night for really bad pay. And this place was so far away from me, it cost me a fortune in fuel and all the rest of it. And I really didn't have the money to like travel there, but it was the only job I could get. And I remember it dawned on me, I thought, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like, how does anyone work a 9 to 5? It wasn't even a 9 to 5, it was an 8 till 6:30. But I remember thinking, how is anyone doing this? Because the job was incredibly tedious. And the bullying there was really bad. I just couldn't stand it. But anyway, I eventually met David there, and then he helped me with my CV. And I met him in February. And after he helped me with my CV, which was really early on, I started getting job interviews. And I got offered my first proper decent job paying me a decent wage in what must have been September. So February to September, and I was out, I was gone. And yet before I'd met David, I couldn't get anyone to even respond back to me when I'd send my CV in, because my CV, I'd written it so poorly, because I didn't have any experience, you know, I didn't know how to write a CV before. And I didn't really have much to put on the CV besides education as well at that point. I didn't really have any experience. Anyway, I've worked in marketing for all these years, and I've always worked in agency. And this story, by the way, I am going to do a video on my Patreon about how I ended up retiring early. And I want to talk about that over there, because that's more of like a private story. Not private, because otherwise I wouldn't tell it, but like more personal. So that is going to be going over there. And there is some crossover, you guys, my Patreons. There's some crossover between what I'm going to talk about in this video and what I will talk about in that. But yeah, so I started working in these places and I just climbed my way up. And a lot of what was the rocket that pushed me to elevate myself was my debt. You know, the debt was frightening. You know, I've shared with you my debt story before. It was really, really scary. And I remember very often, you know, I might be in the car driving somewhere. I might be trying to get to sleep at night. I might be out with my friends on a Friday evening, and suddenly my brain would go, you're in £40,000 worth of debt and you can't afford to pay it back. And I never will forget the panic, like the rising panic that I used to get whenever I would think about that, because I would think, oh my gosh, like it was out of control debt, because that rubbish job I was in paid me less than my bills each month. So I was going into I was in an overdraft over my overdraft, which is really bad. It really affects your credit file. Thank God it was so many years ago now. It's not affected me now, but it really affected me back then. And there was, I couldn't do any more. I was working all the hours I could. I couldn't do anymore. I was even selling my stuff on eBay to try and raise money to like pay for my petrol, to pay for my food, etc. So anyway, that's what really ricocheted me. That's what really powered me to climb the career ladder, because I knew if you're going to clear this debt, you need to be earning more money. And if you're working for a company that isn't going to give you a bonus when you deserve it, like not if you don't deserve it, if you're late into work every day, and if you're unhelpful, and if you're a pain to work with, and if you don't do what you're told, or if you do the job but you do it badly, you can't ask for a pay rise, okay? Right, and you can't ask for a bonus. But if you know you are going above and beyond and you're hitting your targets and you're not getting a bonus, then, or you're not getting that pay rise, or you're not getting that promotion, and you know deep down you are worthy of it and you're ready for it, that is the point where you look and you leave and you go elsewhere. And I've worked at some companies before that I have loved and I haven't wanted to leave. Like I worked at one place and I really didn't want to leave. I liked the people, I liked the agency, loved the clients, but for reasons to do with them, going through that credit crunch thing that happened many years ago now, they didn't have the money to pay people bonuses. They didn't have the money to pay you like an increased salary, etc. And I remember thinking at the time, I got to be cutthroat here. It's not my fault that you can't afford to pay people like what they're worth, even though I had my review and they were like, you've done great, like, and if we had the money, we'd give you some money. Like I that's not my problem. I need to think of myself. I'm in so much debt and I need to clear that. And that means I have to quit this place and move on to the next place. And as I say, I didn't want to leave there and it really upset me. And I remember knowing a couple of weeks before that I was going to have to hand in my notice, because I'd got accepted for a job that was the next level up, the next tier up, so like a promotion up for a lot more money. And I knew I had to hand my notice in at this place, but I didn't want to do it. And I kept putting it off because I was sad about having to leave. And I eventually put in my notice. And do you know what? The next place I went to, I didn't love it. It wasn't as cool. It wasn't as like edgy. It didn't have the people it didn't have the clients that I really gelled with, like the accounts. But it was more money and it helped me pay off my debt. So I stayed there for a few years. Then I moved on again. you get where I'm going with this. You climb and you climb and you climb. So anyway, that's what I did. And then I got to a point where so the one place I was working at, I got quite senior, and I had some of my clients at big blue chips, and they had little businesses on the side. And they would say to me, off the record, they would be like, look, I want to set up my own business doing XYZ. I need a website doing, I need branding, I need strategy, I need to know what to do to get clients and to grow and all the rest of it, social media, everything. But we can't afford to use the agency you work for. Can you consult for us though? That's how it all started. I remember my first client was a fashion brand, a very small little fashion brand. Great idea they had, and they're still going now. And they built a website, but it was not SEO optimized. So even if you typed in the name of the company, it didn't even come up on Google. It was not indexing at all. And there were many different reasons for it. But they'd used like, we call it like a CMS, like a content management system. They'd used a third party, you know, like Wix. Wix can be quite good, but you know these website companies where you pay them, and the website's built for you. You just pick the colorway that you want and you upload your own logo, and you know, but you're limited. I prefer to build websites from scratch. You have more control over it. You can be a lot more bespoke, and you can be a lot more targeted with the SEO. So anyway, they came to me and they said, we've got this website. No one's finding us. And that was like one of my first jobs, was to audit what they were doing and tell them where they were going wrong. And then they wanted to implement it, because otherwise it would have been more money for them for me to have implemented what I was saying was not quite right. And that's really where it started. And then they would tell their friend, and then their friend would tell their friend. And then you just as you're there doing stuff, you have people like, I had a friend of mine who worked in the beauty industry, and she wanted to set up her own beauty salon, and she didn't have branding. She needed business cards. She needed a website. She needed all of it. And she already had the client base though, but she needed to set up like the marketing, the content for the marketing side of things. And that was another project that I worked on. So that's really how it happened. It just evolved very slowly over time, and it was never meant to turn into a thing. The reason why I was doing it, and it wasn't for the money either, because I wasn't really charging that much for what I was doing, because I wanted to help people. The reason why I was doing it was to help people. I wanted to see people succeed. I wasn't doing it as a cash grab. I wasn't doing it for that reason. And because I knew they didn't have much budget anyway, what's the point in charging thousands of pounds for someone that's just starting out and they've got 500 quid? You know, there's no point. But it grew from there. And then you'd have people that you had worked on their small businesses for, and they would still be working for a blue chip, and then they would get that blue chip to work with you. And there you go. So I ended up in a point, and David was doing the same thing. But we didn't work together. He worked for another company, but he had his own clients as well. And by this point, we were like crossing over. So if my clients wanted more technical, more analytical, etc., then I would get David to do that. And likewise with his clients, if he wanted strategy or design doing, I would do it, or like the account management side, like the consultancy, like we would cross over. And then we quit our jobs. This was years ago. We quit our jobs when we had enough clients, and we just worked on our own clients. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. I was scared because I was just like, oh, I've quit a really decent job here, paying decent money. And I love the people, I love the agency, love the clients. I get excited. Like, I used to be excited on a Sunday evening to go into this place. And when I say excited, you've got no idea. I actually didn't like Fridays, because I was like, oh, I'm not going to see my friends for a couple of days. And I still have those people now on WhatsApp. I still go out with those people now of an evening. They are my friends, and I really missed them when I left, and I knew I was going to miss them. But I'd reached a fork in the road where I'd got as senior as I could at this company. I was getting a little bit bored because it wasn't challenging me anymore. And frankly, I had so much work outside of work that I didn't have the time to do it. And I remember trying to juggle the two, you know, trying to juggle my 9 to 5 with my work outside of work, and really struggling to do that. So that was why I quit. So that's how I ended up doing what I was doing. And then what started happening from there is the consulting side of things. So we would have a combination of work, right? We would have people coming to us who wanted marketing, branding, strategy, SEO, whatever, social media. But then we would also have agencies coming to us saying, we have a client that needs whatever. We would like to hire you as a contractor on a contract, as a contractor, like as a consultant, and we'll set you up with like an agency email address so it looks like you work for us, but you don't. And you will come in for like a few days, a few months, or for the lifetime of a project. And then when it's done, they let you go and you move on to the next agency. And that grew as well. And the way that I got that combination of things, first of all, some of it was agencies I'd worked for before, so they knew me and they knew what my skill set was, and they would be like, right, we got a pitch coming up. This is your bag. Can you come back and do this job for us? Fine. But also the other way I did it was through signing up with local recruiters. And I signed up with loads. And when I say recruiters, I don't just mean like a quick, like, hi, this is my name, I'm looking for work. You make friends with these people. They get to know you. They get to know your name. And then before you know it, you're being headhunted, because these recruiters are like, someone phones them looking for a consultant. They're like, I have literally got the best person for you. I've worked with her for like 10 years. These are her details, and they put you forward. They were putting me forward for things I wasn't even asking at this point. And then they contact me and they'd be like, we've got a job, do you want it? And I've got those people on LinkedIn, those recruiters on LinkedIn. I have known some of these recruiters since what will have been 2007. So I have had some of these recruiters, they've grown up with me and I've grown up with them. And they know where I've worked and they know what I do. They don't even need to ask anymore. And that's what I would say to any of you, even if you're not looking to consult, if you are looking to find a new job, get a promotion and work your way up to the next level. If you're struggling, phone a local recruiter, get to know them. I used to take recruiters out for coffee or lunch. I used to take them out, and one recruiter, in fact a couple, when I was very early on, David said to me, he was the one that gave me this tip. He was like, phone up a recruiter. If you feel like you're gelling with them on the phone, say to them, do you want to do coffee? And he said, make the time to go and see them. And then he said, they are more likely to put a face to a name and help you out. That's one thing that I started doing. And I had a couple of recruiters when I was very young be kind enough as to go, do you know what? I know you now, we've done coffee, we've done lunch, we gel. Your CV needs some work. And they would actually do it for me. They would be like, send me your CV, I'll do it how it needs to be. And then that became my CV template that I worked with years later. Was a CV that someone put together for me who was a recruiter and who knew what needed to be said and done. And it just stuck with me. And that's where I got that tip as well, guys, where if you're looking for a job, never have one CV that you send to every job you apply for. Your CV, you should modify it for every job you apply to, because each job is going to have a slightly different requirement list. And I always have my CV with my details at the top, and then I have a profile, like a short paragraph of my expertise, how many years I've worked, etc. And then I put in key terms from the job spec. So if they want me to do, I don't know, like customer service, administration, data entry, or whatever it is, I will put that in the paragraph at the top, because most people, like I've worked in places before and you get CVs sent to you. You have so many coming through. You don't sit there and read everything. You skim it, and you skim it for key terms that fit the brief that you are trying to recruit for. And I like to put as well, this is what I've always done, those key terms, I will make them bold in the CV, just so they pop out, just so they stand out. Now, everyone has got their own different techniques with CVs, but this is what's always worked for me. And I think that tailoring your CV specifically to each job you're going for it's going to help you, trust me. And then when you go to interviews, whether you're going for a consultant short-term role, like a freelance role, or whether you're going permanent, always go with you, if you can. If by this point you've got like a history and you've worked at other places, I always go with a bespoke PowerPoint presentation that is tailored to that job based on my experience and based on projects that I've worked on. And I always do that because it takes the nervousness off me, because I'm like, I forget that I'm in a job interview. I'm just thinking, oh, this is just a pitch. It's just that I'm happen to be pitching myself, but I'm focused on taking people through the PowerPoint presentation, talking them through my work samples, as opposed to sitting there and being grilled. And they do grill, you know, they still ask you questions and stuff, but it just shows your tenacity, that you haven't just turned up and sat like a sack of potatoes at the table and gone, oh, I want the job. You know, you've actually taken some time to make yourself stand out. And if you work in a role where maybe you don't have visuals you can show. So I work in marketing. I've got loads of creative stuff I can show, whether it's like branding, before and afters, websites, digital campaigns, offline campaigns, B2B, B2C, whatever. I've got lots of visual things, creative, that I can put in a presentation and talk through. But you might not have that. Yours might be more data driven. Create like nice graphs in colours that stand out. Keep it all short, keep it all sweet, put big numbers in there, show the targets that you've hit. If you've got any, what really helps as well, if you can get any recommendations from people you've worked with in the past, just get them to write like a couple of lines like, Sophie was really great to work with, she used to hit her target, she was a great team player, whatever. Put that in your presentation as well. And then put underneath the name and the job title and the company of the person that's written it. I know a lot of people in the industry who will say to me, Sophie, can you write me a reference? And they write me a reference back, you know? And it's a way of showing that you're a sure thing. So that's how I've ended up doing it. And although I am semi-retired now, I'm still doing consulting a couple of days a week here and there. And I'm doing that because I want to stay current. I want to stay fresh. David is like done with work and he's completely packed it up. I am going to talk more on Patreon about the retirement side of things and how we're funding ourselves now, because that's going to be a question a lot of people ask. Like, if you're not working, how are you paying for your life? Because you still need money. So I'll talk about that over there. But yeah, that's kind of it. So a lot of my consultancy freelance work that I was doing before, I'm still doing now, but I've cut it right down. Like, I don't want to do the amount of hours that I was doing before. I'm kind of past that. Don't want to do that anymore. So I'm just doing like little bits here and there just to stay current. I don't know whether I'll do it forever. I might do what David's done and go completely like forget it myself and do not too much. But right now that's what I'm doing. So that's how I got into consulting. That's how it all kind of worked out. I hope that this has been interesting. And to the person who made this video request, I hope that this has been interesting to you and it's answered your questions. If you have any questions, leave them below and I will try and respond back to everyone. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.